For 20 years, King Ira ruled Babylon, transforming it into a city of strength and prosperity. His victories, fortified walls, and the divine might of the Blazefrost celestial sword ensured his people's safety and enemies' fear. Yet beneath this outward success lay a storm of longing and regret, a pain that had festered since the day Bel-Shaltinana, the priestess he loved, returned to her temple to serve the gods, leaving him to rule alone. The years only magnified Ira's yearning. Bel-Shaltinana became a legend in Babylon, celebrated for her beauty, piety, and devotion. But Ira alone knew the sorrow she carried, a sorrow that mirrored his own. Though the demands of kingship occupied him, his thoughts often wandered to her, to the life they had never shared. One day, word reached Ira that Bel-Shaltinana had fallen gravely ill. The news struck him like a mortal blow. He abandoned his royal duties and hurried to the temple, the city seeming to hold its breath as he made his way through its streets. At the temple, Ira found her lying on a simple bed, her once vibrant hair turned silver, her eyes dimmed by illness. Yet to him, she was still a vision of grace and beauty. He knelt beside her, trembling, as he took her cold hand in his. She stirred and opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "Ira," she whispered, her voice faint but laden with emotion. "You came." "I will always come for you," he replied, his voice thick with suppressed tears. Her lips curved into a faint, wistful smile. "Ira, there is something I must tell you, something I should have told you long ago." His heart tightened as he asked, "What is it?" Gathering her strength, she confessed, "I loved you, Ira. From the moment I first saw you, I loved you. But my love for the gods, it was too great. It consumed me, demanded everything I had, and I could not allow myself to love you as I wished. I forced myself to be indifferent, to distance myself from you, but it was the hardest thing I ever did. You were my only love, Ira." The weight of her words hit Ira like a tidal wave. He had always suspected, always hoped, but to hear her say it now, on her deathbed, was almost unbearable. Tears welled in his eyes. "I knew," he choked out. "I always knew. But hearing you say it, I can't." She squeezed his hand weakly. "Don't cry for me, Ira. I have made my peace with the gods. I go to them now, knowing that you loved me, even when I could not show you my love in return." Through his tears, Ira whispered, "I love you. I always have, and I always will." In their final moments together, love and sorrow intertwined as Ira wept for the life they could never share. In the heart of Babylon, King Ira's world shattered as Bel-Shaltinana, the woman who had been his solace and love, succumbed to an untimely death. Her parting words, "And I, you, Ira," forever, lingered as her life faded away, leaving Ira with an unbearable sense of loss. Once a mighty warrior and celebrated hero, Ira found himself undone by a grief that no battle had prepared him for. The silence that followed her passing was suffocating, amplifying the void left by her absence. Ira clung to her lifeless hand, pleading, "No, please, don't leave me. Not yet." But death was unyielding, and with her final breath, Bel-Shaltinana was gone. The temple filled with the quiet prayers of priests, but Ira heard none of it, consumed by his sorrow. He remained by her side, the weight of her loss pressing down on him. When he finally departed, the cold wind through Babylon mirrored the emptiness in his heart. Returning to the palace, Ira retreated into isolation, the Blazefrost celestial sword gathering dust as he abandoned the battles that had once defined him. The duties of kingship continued, but they were performed with a mechanical detachment. The people of Babylon, who had once seen him as a figure of unshakable strength, now saw a man diminished, his once bright eyes clouded by sorrow. At night, Ira found himself drawn to the temple where Bel-Shaltinana had served. There, he knelt in silent, desperate prayers, not for strength or guidance, but for release from a world devoid of love and meaning. His grief, unrelenting, cast a shadow over his reign. The victories, glory, and power that had once driven him were hollow in the face of the one loss that truly mattered. Ira's memories of Bel-Shaltinana haunted him, her serene smile, her understanding presence, the love that had once bound them together. The man who had once embodied the hopes and strength of Babylon was now a shell, wandering through life with a broken heart. He reflected on the price of being a hero, realizing the unbearable cost had been losing her. In his solitude, Ira gazed out over Babylon, a city that thrived under his rule even as its king faded. The legacy of his strength endured in the prosperity of his people, but for Ira, the light of the world had gone out. Each day dragged on, an existence devoid of purpose. His grief was a constant, his prayers unanswered, and his soul burdened by the memory of a love too great for the mortal world. Ira had whispered into the temple's darkness, his voice trembling under the weight of sorrow. "Great Marduk," he had pleaded, "you gave me strength and victory, but now I beg for peace. My life has been battles and bloodshed, and I am tired. My heart is broken, and I no longer wish to fight. Take me from this world, O great God. Let me join Belshaltinana in the afterlife, for I have no reason to remain." Night after night, his prayers had echoed through the temple's empty halls, carried by the cold winds sweeping the city. Once strong and commanding, his voice grew weaker with each passing day, reduced to a hoarse whisper, barely audible to himself. Still, Ira had prayed, clinging to the hope that the gods might hear him and grant the release he so desperately sought. Far above the mortal world, in the celestial halls of the gods, Marduk sat upon his throne, watching the earth with a heavy heart. The supreme god had seen his chosen son, Ira, consumed by despair. Once a fiery and determined warrior, Ira's spirit had waned, shattered by the loss of his beloved. Marduk had heard his mournful prayers, quiet pleas for an end to his suffering. The god's divine presence filled the heavens as he listened with sorrow. Ira had been more than a mortal to him, a creation of divine will, a warrior forged from the cosmos to protect against darkness. But now, that warrior sought release. With a voice like thunder, Marduk spoke, his tone laden with ancient sadness. "Ira, my son," he had intoned, "you served me well. You fought with courage and honor, fulfilling your destiny. But I see your heart is weary, your soul burdened beyond mortal limits. You asked for release, and I shall grant it." Marduk's vast, star-like eyes had turned toward the earth, where Ira knelt in prayer. "Rest now, my son," the god had whispered, his voice reaching across the heavens. "You have earned peace. The world will remember you and speak your name with reverence. Go to Belshaltinana and be reunited with the one you love. Your journey in this world has ended." After a final, sorrowful gaze, Marduk withdrew his divine presence, leaving behind a world that would soon mourn one of its greatest heroes. For 2 years, Ira lingered in a limbo of grief, his body alive but his spirit crushed. The fire within him had long since died, leaving only cold ashes. He fulfilled his duties as king with quiet resignation, devoid of joy or passion. The people of Babylon, once inspired by Ira's strength, watched with sorrow as their king faded. They saw that he was no longer the man he had been, and though they loved him, they knew they could not ease his pain. On a frigid winter evening, as the sun sank and shadows stretched over the land, King Ira's journey came to a peaceful end. Once a legendary figure who had battled gods and monsters and safeguarded Babylon, Ira took his last breath with a serene expression, as though finding long-awaited relief. News of Ira's death spread swiftly through Babylon, casting the city into mourning. The people, who revered him not only as a king but as a heroic symbol of strength and honor, wept openly in the streets. Their grief stemmed from losing a protector who had stood against darkness and loved them as his own. Amidst this collective sorrow, the Black Iron Horse, Ira's steadfast companion through countless trials, mourned most profoundly. The creature, bound to Ira by a connection forged in destiny, let out a heartrending roar that reverberated across Babylon, moving everyone who heard it to tears. However, nothing could summon Ira back. The Black Iron Horse, its divine fire dimming, lay down beside its master and succumbed to the silence of death. The city plunged deeper into mourning, draped in black. For days, the streets filled with mourners, and temples resounded with prayers and sacrifices beseeching the gods to guide Ira's soul to the afterlife. Stories of his bravery and indomitable spirit spread, ensuring his name would endure for generations. Determined to honor Ira, the people decided to construct a secret tomb befitting his greatness. This resting place would house not only Ira's body but also the Blazefrost celestial sword, his trusted weapon. Crafted with unmatched care, the tomb would remain hidden to protect its sanctity. Craftsmen worked tirelessly, and when it was completed, Babylon gathered for a solemn farewell. The funeral procession stretched endlessly, mourners carrying torches that lit Ira's final journey. His body, adorned in regal silks, was carried on a bier, accompanied by the lifeless form of the black iron horse and the Blazefrost sword laid across his chest. As the tomb was sealed, the people wept, their grief mingled with pride for a king who had given his all. The hidden tomb became a symbol of Babylon's resilience and a tribute to Ira's legacy. High above, Marduk, creator of Ira, observed the mourning with heavy sorrow. To the god, Ira was more than a warrior, he was a beloved creation, akin to a son. Watching the procession, Marduk whispered, "You have done well, my son. You fulfilled your destiny with honor. The world will remember your name, but I will miss you dearly. You were my greatest creation, my greatest pride." With those words, Marduk's gaze lingered on Ira's tomb, a testament to the warrior's courage, sacrifice, and the profound bond between mortal and divine. Ira's legacy was sealed in both the hearts of his people and the heavens above. The supreme god's voice, filled with a deep and ancient sadness, had echoed through the divine halls, a lament for the loss of a son who had given everything for the world. Though Marduk had known that Ira's soul was at peace, reunited with Belshazzar in the afterlife, the god could not help but feel the weight of his absence. Even gods, in their infinite power and wisdom, had not been immune to sorrow. In that moment, Marduk had known he would carry Ira's memory for eternity, a reminder of the love, courage, and sacrifice that defined his greatest creation. As years passed, Ira and his faithful black iron horse became legends. The people of Babylon, prospering under new rulers, never forgot the protector who stood as a beacon of hope. Songs and stories celebrated his deeds, ensuring his memory endured for generations. His hidden tomb, known only to a few, became a symbol of Babylon's resilience and a place of pilgrimage to honor the king who gave everything for his people. Ira's legacy had been more than battle and bloodshed. It symbolized love, sacrifice, and heroism, ensuring his name would remain a beacon of hope. As centuries passed, Babylon declined, its splendor overshadowed by rising empires. The city stood as a relic, crumbling and abandoned. Yet ambition thrived. Across the Persian Empire, Alexander of Macedon emerged, determined to reshape history. Ascending to the throne at 20, he embarked on a conquest of Persia in 334 BC, dismantling it piece by piece. His decisive victory at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC marked a turning point, forcing Darius III to flee. By 331 BC, Alexander entered Babylon, welcomed as its ruler. Under his rule, Babylon became a center of Greek culture, embodying his vision of uniting East and West. However, its ancient glories faded under new governance. Alexander, fascinated by Babylon's past, became obsessed with Ira's legend. Despite extensive searches, the tomb of the warrior king who wielded the Blazefrost celestial sword and rode the black iron horse remained hidden. Myths claimed divine protection surrounded the tomb, keeping its secrets until someone worthy emerged. For Alexander, Ira's story symbolized the eternal allure of heroism. Though the tomb eluded him, it awaited discovery by one destined to unlock its mysteries. As Alexander's empire expanded to the farthest corners of the known world, the young king had grown increasingly restless. The victories that had once filled him with pride brought only unease, as if an unseen force pursued him. By 323 BC, Alexander returned to Babylon, weary from years of campaigning. The city, once vibrant and magnificent, had declined under Greek rule, its walls crumbling and its temples silent. Amid Babylon's decay, Alexander began experiencing strange visions. At night, a shadowy figure appeared in his dreams, speaking in an incomprehensible language filled with malice. The figure always whispered one name, Bree. These visions consumed Alexander, making him paranoid and distrustful, eroding his confidence. In June 323 BC, Alexander's health suddenly deteriorated. Racked with headaches, fever, and delirium, he grew weaker each day. On his deathbed, surrounded by generals, Alexander uttered his final word, "Bre." The room fell silent, his generals exchanging uneasy glances as the king's soul departed, leaving behind a fractured empire. Without his leadership, the Greek Empire fragmented into warring territories, and Babylon, once the center of his empire, fell into ruin. Even as Babylon decayed, the tomb of Ira, the legendary king who had once defended the city, remained hidden. Its exact location was lost, but its legend endured, tied to whispers of Ira's heroism and the dark force he had fought. Over the centuries, the memory of Ira faded into obscurity, with Babylon reduced to rubble. In modern times, Dr. Foster's archaeological team sought to uncover Ira's tomb. However, the earth seemed to resist their efforts, the compacted sand and rock thwarting progress. Local workers, frightened by rumors of curses, muttered about spirits guarding the site. Dr. Foster reassured them, but the unease remained palpable. The tomb, locked beneath layers of time, kept its secrets, as if waiting for a worthy discoverer. Somewhere in the shadows, the name Bre still lingered, an ominous reminder of the dark forces that had once threatened the world. After days of grueling excavation, the diggers uncovered a massive stone door buried deep in the earth. The discovery sent waves of excitement through the team, though it was tempered by exhaustion and an eerie sense of foreboding. The door, carved from a single stone slab, bore intricate symbols that baffled the archaeologists. Dr. Emily Carter studied the carvings closely. "These symbols, they don't match any known Babylonian scripts," she observed in awe. "This might be much older than we thought." "How do we get it open?" asked Dr. Michael Torres, his impatience evident. The mystery of what lay behind the door gnawed at them all. Dr. Jonathan Pierce searched the surface for a hidden latch, insisting there has to be a way. Doors like this don't just exist for no reason. Despite their efforts, using levers, pulleys, and brute force, the door remained immovable, as though it were fused to the earth. Uneasy workers refused to approach it, whispering prayers and casting fearful glances at the stone. Yet, the archaeologists pressed on, driven by the belief that they stood on the verge of a monumental discovery. They were determined to unlock the secrets that could redefine history.